Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us here on France 24. You're watching Eye on Africa. I'm Cyril Vanier. Here are the headlines this evening for your African news. The opposition in Congo-Brazzaville calls for a campaign of civil disobedience following the re-election of Denis Sassou Nguesso. Definitive results were announced overnight. Brazzaville is so far calm, but remains tense. France 24 continues its in-depth look at Eritrea, one of the poorest countries in the world. The government is betting on the mining sector to bring in much-needed cash. And bringing classical music to the slums of Nairobi, one note at a time. The world's best musicians are on board, mentoring the kids. We'll see about that later on. After a tense wait, the definitive results of Congo's presidential election were announced in the middle of the night. 72-year-old Denis Sassou Nguesso wins 60% of the vote, thus extending his rule. The opposition, however, does not accept those results. Mary Colombel has more.
After ruling the country for the better part of 3 decades, Denis Sassou Nguesso has once again been re-elected.
The election was very transparent. For my part, I am happy with the results. And I hope that they translate the will of the people.
A victory rejected by opposition candidates. Their supporters say the vote was rigged.
He's securing his seat and imposing himself on us. Look at the southern neighborhoods. The police are flexing their muscles. They're everywhere.
If we go out in the street, they'll kill us. They'll slaughter us. That's what they do.
Despite these fears, one of the president's rivals, General Mokoko, called for civil disobedience.
I call on you to rise up and stand in the way of this arbitrary rule. I call on you to reclaim your vote. You were robbed. This victory is yours.
This Thursday, communications are up and running again after a 4-day blackout imposed by the government to prevent the opposition from publishing their own results.
Also happening in Africa today, a Malian jihadist admits that he is guilty of a war crime and will plead guilty in front of the International Criminal Court. That's a first in the ICC's history. The court has decided to put Ahmad al-Faki al-Mahdi on trial for destroying shrines in Timbuktu 3 years ago when jihadist groups overran parts of northern Mali, including his group Ansar Dine alongside al-Qaeda. Almost 30 countries from North and West Africa and the Sahel region are gathered in Egypt to improve cooperation in the fight against terrorism. Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, the Islamic State group, and Somalia's Shababs pose a security threat that extends across borders, Egypt says, and Cairo calls for greater cooperation. And the leader of Boko Haram, who hadn't been seen for a year, has now appeared in a new video that is prompting speculation about his future. In the recording, which is yet to be authenticated, Abubakar Shekau appears subdued, almost dejected, saying, "For me, the end has come," a far cry from his usual bravado and fiery rhetoric. Now we continue our Eritrea coverage. France 24's Nicolas Germain and Roméo Langlois were granted rare access to this secretive country in the Horn of Africa. After surveying the country's politics, today they report on the economic outlook. One of the poorest nations in the world is hoping the minerals in its soil could boost the economy. The Bisha mine that you're about to discover has made close to $1 billion in the last 4 years.
To reach the Bisha mine, it's a 5-hour drive from the capital Asmara towards the Sudanese border. It's Eritrea's first mine in full production, and the authorities hope it can boost the economy in a country where people earn $3 a day on average. The mine initially produced gold and is now yielding copper and zinc. Bisha is jointly owned by the Eritrean state and Canadian company Nevsun. Managers believe there are more minerals in the region.
We are very busy exploring in the near mine vicinity, and we think the ground's very prospective. We've had a number of releases recently of very good intercepts, so we're quite encouraged and excited about our exploration program.
Abdul Karim Sidibé comes from Mali and is employed here as a senior planning engineer. To work in Eritrea, you have to accept certain conditions.
The
main objective of the state is to train Eritrean workers so that after some time they can replace the expatriates. If I want to extend my contract, I need to train Eritreans.
Eritrean workers here are paid much more than many of their fellow citizens who do national service for years on very low wages, but they still have some complaints.
Hardship workers getting salary low and who are working in the office, they are getting more than us. That's our complaint only, but accommodation and something is good.
Eritrea says it hopes to have 4 mines in operation by 2018. Its government comes from a Marxist guerrilla group that won a 30-year independence war against its vast neighbor Ethiopia. It doesn't want to abandon mines to the private sector.
Some multinational companies say it isn't always very easy to do business here in Eritrea. This mine in Bisha is held at 60% by the Canadian Nefsen and at 40% by the Eritrean authorities. 40% for the government, that's a much higher stake than in many other African countries.
Online shopping is taking off in West Africa, and Jumia, the local equivalent of Amazon, already has a big chunk of the market, but it faces a rather large stumbling block. Not everyone has internet access to order their goods. Jumia is betting on smartphones and apps now to overcome that hurdle. Rosie Collier and Moïse Gomis report from Nigeria.
Ruth and Smart are sales representatives for Jumia.com, an online shop. Their work takes them to every corner of Lagos. They're 2 of over 45,000 independent sales agents. Ruth and Smart focus on people without internet access and help connect them with Jumia using a smartphone.
When you're able to show them those things online, some can really realize that if this can be brought to my own house, why bother myself, stress myself, go over to the market and get what I want if they can easily deliver it here?
Jumia has a workforce of over 15,000 people in Nigeria. It is the #1 online shop in Africa, a continent with a virtually untapped consumer market. Jumia's potential has attracted the attention of international investors, including the French insurance giant AXA. Fatoumata Ba, the managing director of Jumia, says the company has grown to become a multinational.
We work with many different brands, national and international brands. Of course, we will need more investments so that we can employ teams of people to market our site to all the brands that see Africa as a new retail frontier.
Jumia delivers throughout Nigeria. 50% of those deliveries are in the commercial capital, Lagos. Delivery drivers battle with the city's notorious traffic jams to reach their customers, sometimes taking huge risks in poorer parts of this mega city.
I try to avoid all the avoidable stress-prone issues.
Having conquered the Nigerian market, where it is over 100 million subscribers, Jumia has its sights set on becoming a global online giant.
Piano and violin are not the typical sounds you'd expect to hear in Nairobi slums, but a new charity in Kenya has made it its mission to teach kids classical music. And to kickstart the project, they're bringing in some of the world's most eminent musicians.
Tempting the kids off the streets using classical music. This is the aim of Ghetto Classics, an association launched in 2009 in Korogocho, one of Nairobi's largest slums. It's now teaching more than 300 children to play a musical instrument.
They're out of trouble, they're doing good, they're dreaming big, they want more, the community themselves does admit that Ghetto Classics has been the most impactful program because of the skills that we teach the kids, that they stand out as mentors to the other children.
Pavel Timofeyevsky, a world-renowned pianist of Russian origin, has come to perform a series of concerts in Nairobi. The proceeds will all go to funding music education for underprivileged children in the Korogocho slums. On his first visit to the country, Timofeyevsky was keen to meet Kenya's youth.
This is very important, just like I was inspired when I was a child, when I would meet professional musicians. I mean, you have to have even the hope of maybe wanting to become a professional musician, you have to meet professional musicians. So therefore, I'm very glad that I can do this.
Eric first became interested in music in 2009, thanks to Ghetto Classics, starting off as a singer and then as a saxophonist. And for the first time in his life, he was able to play a duet with a great musician.
They motivate us to keep on working hard, keep on practicing, because we also want to be like them, to play international level, play around the world, play for people.
More than $5,000 have been raised so far. And with more international artists expected in Nairobi this summer, it seems that the classical music scene here is set to stay.
Okay, that's it from us. That's your Africa news for the moment. We're going to take a very short break. Do stay tuned. More news coming up right after this on France 24.
Down to earth.
Globally, 1 person in 9 goes to bed hungry. How can we change our production and consumption to distribute food resources fairly? From famine in conflict zones to foreseeable disasters, our team takes you to the source of the problem. Discover the tools that can help end world hunger.
Down to earth on France 24 and France24.com.